Are you part of the new religion in business? Find out in this bonus episode from PODMAX right here, right now. It's On Air Brands Live.
You're now tuned in to the On Air Brands podcast.
Andrea Sullivan, Chief Marketing Officer of Vayner. Now, is it VaynerX, Vayner Media? Where do you fit into the company puzzle pieces here? Is it the parent company? Is it the agency? Where are you sitting in context?
Todd, that is a great question. Thank you so much for having me on today. Yeah, so I am the Chief Marketing Officer of VaynerX, which is the holding entity that wraps a big hug around a whole host of family of businesses. So we've got things for entrepreneurs, we have offerings for Fortune 100, and then we have offerings for celebrities. So, and everything in between. So yes, I am the CMO of all those good things that continue to grow each and every day.
Yeah, and it's awesome, and anybody listening to this within earshot is certainly familiar with the famed CEO Gary Vaynerchuk, who is has been the leader in this term of the new religion of business. So you want to give us a quick definition on what we're talking about today? Like, what is this new religion that everybody is hopefully aware of, but how we dive in and really implement it in our businesses?
Yeah, I think that we really celebrate a religion that underscores the possibility for all brands to become media businesses themselves and become the publishers and telling their story in ways that connects with culture. And to do that means we've got to change a lot of things that have been historically true to our industry, right? So gone are the days where you come up with one big idea and you produce a TV spot, and then you bring it down and you kind of smear it across different channels, and you might chop it up into bits and put it out to social, and then wait a while and have all these goofy metrics come back to tell a story that doesn't necessarily show the connection between sales and what you just spent a whole bunch of time and money on. So we celebrate, a religion that hopefully will unlock a whole kind of, let's get rid of this fear. Let's go out there. Let's test all kinds of different ideas. Let's connect with all kinds of different audiences. But that means you have to be able to put a huge volume of content out there, right? Yeah. And most businesses aren't built to do that.
Yeah. And you are also, you are not just diving into this newfangled stuff. You have a very seasoned, long list on your resume of brands that you've worked with: Adobe, Apollo, Bank of America, eBay, Feeding America, Fairmont, the FanDuel, Gates of this, McDonald's, Microsoft. I'm skipping, it's alphabetically. I mean, this list goes on and on and on with the huge brands that you've worked with. So you are familiar with the old world thinking of, okay, what's next year's TV spot theme going to be? And let's go all in and all that. And like, if it flops, then it flops and you're screwed for a year, right? Or the idea of having to buy a year's worth of print ads in something and crossing your fingers that it works, as opposed to the opportunity that we have in today's world of putting stuff out on a daily basis and seeing the immediate feedback loop of what works and what doesn't, what audience likes what kind of messaging, and getting that out and making changes on a daily basis. It's a completely different mindset. And obviously I'm someone who believes in it wholeheartely, that all businesses need to be diving in.
That's right, Todd. And, I came from Omnicom. So, a very, traditional holding company, great place. I was there for 16 years. Yeah. A lot of my friends and family still live there. That said, I was definitely, when I chose to start my conversations with Gary, I was looking for an enlightened, place that I could really grow with, and Vayner really celebrates the combination of understanding how to move the needle from a business metric standpoint, but how to not hold on to your own methodology and fall so in love with it that you're not able to change and to show up in a way that's going to connect with the world where it is right now. And there's no other time than, during this pandemic where this has been tested. Yeah. And so it's interesting to, have been here for 3.5 years and to see the kind of rise in growth that we're experiencing now. And it's especially just because everyone's had to kind of change up their ways of thinking and doing. And as a result, we've been able to meet people and where they are and to help in educating them, sometimes working with them too, but we've been able to really build and grow our community, most importantly, so that we've got, we have a lot of people that kind of celebrate this religion.
Yeah, and I love it. And you said something in the break here at PodMax. Everybody interested in what we have going on, it's a great community event. PodMax.co, check it out. But Andrea, you said, I wrote down in my notes here, and I scribbled it quickly because the conversation is going so fast. But you said something along the lines of helping people, and I think you were actually talking about employees, explore your story and share it at volume.
That's right.
And I think, a few of my principles, the fundamental principles that I teach our clients are to be customer-centric, education-based, value first, and to build a humanized and personalized brand, meaning it's not just a corporate logo, right? Like you can't shake hands with a logo, but to build a business where the audience is connected to people and it has a better feel and that resonates more, as opposed to putting out, stock photos or graphics where no one knows the people behind the business. And I think there's some great examples of companies that put out their own shows. Obviously, On Air Brands, PodMax, we're huge proponents of having a show to do this, but being able to highlight the leaders inside your company to do those things like exploring their story, letting them shine, is a great way to create more content and to make a better connection with the audience that you're trying to reach. And especially if it's different types of audiences, then different types of people in your business will better connect with them. But you talked about the amount of volume that companies, we said posting every day, reaching 1 million different audiences, like it takes a lot. So what kind of conversations do you have for companies that think, okay, that sounds way too overwhelming, and we're just going to kind of pass on that?
Yeah. And I think we get that reaction pretty consistently because, there's some brands that are out there a little bit, but we're always encouraging them to do 2 to 3 times to 10 times the amount that they're doing now. And to try different ways of telling your story, having different storytellers, all those kind of things, and understanding where attention is going. Because that's the other important thing, is that just as soon as you get a rhythm and you're starting to amass an audience in one place, there are new platforms like the Clubhouses of the world, right? Where, okay, so how am I engaging with my audience there, and who do I need to be? And so I think a lot of what we try to do is really focus on the fear that's in organizations, and especially large companies are driven by a top-down mentality where everything has to be checked and sort of there has to be a lowest common denominator sort of buy-in to what a message is. And so as a result, companies move very slowly. They also have been historically committed to having things be overproduced and focused on, exactly having the exact right words getting out, where, I think in the pandemic taught us all a lot of things. One of which is, how do I connect with my audiences in a way that's totally real? And that means that speed is important. It means that listening and engaging is important. And it also just means, knowing that we perhaps don't have the right answer today, and that's okay, but we need to be able to behave in addition to, and to be able to, show through our deeds, what we're all about, in addition to just communicating who we are. All those things are incredibly important. And so the thing I would say that we've been able to do the best at VaynerX and VaynerMedia in particular, is to get rid of that fear inside our organization and hopefully teach our clients to be able to eliminate that fear as well.
Yeah, I love that. And it's all mindset, right? Because, people think they have this hurdle of, I have to create content, but in reality, how many meetings do you have with clients all day, or how many conversations do you have over coffee that are the content you should put out? And it just becomes a matter of getting in a different type of habit, building a new muscle to just document that and digitize those conversations. And, Gary says it all the time, document, don't create, but it comes down to document your expertise that you're already sharing during the day. How do we just make sure we amplify it? So instead of writing an email that goes to one person, you have a subscriber list, so you can send that same value to hundreds, thousands, millions of people. Or how do you put it on, this conversation we're having on Zoom? How do we put that on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram so that we can reach more people, as opposed to having just the one-on-one? And I think being able to document, making that a new habit and mindset shift is key to making it easier to create this volume of content.
That's right. And I think, sort of handing over the microphone or handing over the responsibility, the possibility to all of your employees potentially to be able to engage in that way. And again, it gets down to fear, right? People find, well, wait a second, what's going to happen? We have to have one person that signs off on what the brand means, right? What is that?
Yeah.
Right. And so the whole idea of being able to create a much more engaging environment where everyone can play. I think the one nice thing about the pandemic is we realized that we don't need to get fancy about things, that, the whole idea of connecting and being able to show, I mean, I love your background is perfect. Todd has all the answers to the world from a business standpoint on the whiteboard behind him. And his 4-year-old daughter has added her 2 cents at the bottom.
That's right. Yeah. That's the real gold.
And that's cool, right? We've been able to see one another's dogs and kids and the messiness of our lives. Yeah. And if anything, it's made us become better humans. So hopefully we will take that as a human population, we'll be able to take that into our future as we go back to something that is a graduated something. We don't know what that is. But I think it is going to change the way that people embrace, different forms of communication and interaction.
Yeah. And, I think that's also the importance of transparency and authenticity. When you show up and you say, this is me, this is who I am, then you can release that fear of needing to be perfect, because people are more forgiving. If you communicate in a way that you're trying to tell people, I'm setting the bar high, that there's going to be 0 typos, I'm never going to curse, and we're never going to slip, and there's never going to be a dog running in the background, then you have to live up to that, even when it's not who you truly are. But when you show up transparent and authentic to who you really are, it's much more accepted. We actually ran tests in, I forget if it was 2018 or 2019, but a pre-pandemic, where we were running video content that was, the few $1,000 video production on the stage, animated graphics, very professional looking content for social, versus cell phone and webcam conversations. And the cell phone and webcam videos, just speaking to the camera, speaking to the people, it was 5x the results compared to having like a highly produced. And so when you just show up as yourself and you're there to add value, people recognize that and they appreciate it, and it resonates more.
Yeah. And I think that you just hit the nail on the head, where let's test some things. Let's look at the performance.
Yeah.
And there are so many organizations that can't quite get to that extreme.
Yeah.
They're, the spectrum of the things that they're testing for AB are very close in.
Yeah.
So how do we actually look at not just, testing a few things, but really testing the edge of a spectrum? That still can be on brand in certain ways. So look, I come from Interbrand, where I was taught a lot about the power of brands, and I have deep reverence for that. Now, that said, you can really continue to extend brands in different ways as long as you have a strong relationship with your customers that allows you to grow and change with them. And so getting out to those fringes is the most important thing. And for us as marketers to be almost dispassionate about the results.
Right.
Let's wait and see what comes in, and then let's follow the answers that are given to us.
Yeah, exactly. And look, and every business is different, right? Like that's why you have to test, because sometimes your particular business and audience, for whatever reason, A, might work, but for another business that you thought was similar, B, worked for them because of the way they did it. So, always important to test. And the great thing about how the social platforms work, I mean, for better or worse, is that for when it comes to organic, if you put something out, it's going to be gone in a day or two anyway. So if it wasn't perfect and it didn't work, it's not that big a deal, right? It's not like it sticks around forever. It's not a plaque on everybody's wall. And we always remember these things because we're so connected to them. But your audience is scrolling through 1,000,000 miles an hour. They probably don't even remember it to begin with. So there's no reason to be scared of putting stuff out that you want to test and play with and see what happens.
Which is the importance of the volume, right? So that it's like, if you're just hitting things up and that you're standing for certain things, right? But yeah, in order to make an impact, you actually have to be hit up, a lot more than you can ever imagine. So your whole point about, we're going to post once a day, gone are the days that's going to have any impact at all.
Right.
But I do have to say, I love hearing Gary will come up with a recommendation in some of these meetings that will literally make everyone fall off their chair. It's like saying, But in some ways, it's just to get them to move a little bit more.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So yeah, it's important for all of us, as you pointed out, individual leaders. I think that's a huge area of an opportunity. So particularly C-suite, that perhaps wasn't comfortable because they've got shareholders and they want to make sure that everything's sort of packaged up. How do we show the human side of these leaders in a way that not only engages the outside marketplace, but their own employees? And, this year was the year of the employee. And I think everyone, kind of questioning, like, wait a second, are my leaders the ones that I want to be following for a long time? Or when I get the opportunity, the soonest opportunity I get, am I going to jump ship because they're not showing, that they subscribe to the same values that I do?
I think that's a huge part, a huge conversation that people are not having around content production and promotion, is that having a podcast, I have this weekly video show, and we spin it up into audio podcasts and clips and stuff like that. And I do a lot of, guest events and presentations. And when I'm recruiting people, I don't just interview them, but I'll send them, I say, here's a link to my show. Here's a couple of presentations I did last month. Check them out and make sure that you're aligned with this, right? Like, and if you're not, no hard feelings, like, but it helps them get indoctrinated into what we're doing and the personality types too. Cause like, job descriptions and all that kind of stuff, like, it shows what you're going to be working on, but it doesn't tell you the culture of the business. And putting out content is a way to kind of get those values out, like you said. And I think as a recruiting tool, content and social is amazing, and nobody talks about it from that angle.
Yeah. And that's going to be the secret superpower to any successful business, right? Especially going forward. It's like, do you have the right team assembled? And you're right. The cultural aspect, that's what's going to attract anyone today. It's not the job description.
Right.
So, how we're showing into the hearts, of the leaders is really key. And we've been spending a lot of time in helping leaders to feel more comfortable in telling their personal stories, in addition to, kind of the examples of what's going on inside the company, which they're much more comfortable, but even telling those things in a way that's more interesting and engaging and not so formulaic. And it's hard. It's hard because you have to break down and you have to build new muscles, I guess, but also just break down a lot of, years and decades of behaviors that just aren't relevant anymore.
Yeah. And if you guys are listening, watching this, shameless plug, if that sounds like you and you want to figure out how to craft your message, go to podmax.co, because that's part of the pre-training for the event as well, right? As we help people realize, like, what are the stories I should be telling and what's a good way to tell those stories. And also it's, what we do, and it's a great embedded part of the community culture of PodMax. But like you talked about, it's being vulnerable within the community and knowing it's okay to be scared about doing these things, but this is a safe space for you to get started and learn how to put yourself out there and do those things. And I think, I think guest podcasting is one of the best ways for people to get started if they don't know how to start putting out their content yet, or they don't know how to just talk to the camera and say things. I think guest podcasting is a great way to do it. I know you mentioned in the main room here at the event that over the last year or so, you've been doing a lot of guest podcasting. Did I hear you say that?
That's right. Yeah, no, I've done, and over the years, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the greatest thing is just seeing the acceleration of the whole podcast world.
Yeah.
And at a time when I think some people had question marks about it, but we just hosted one of our Marketing for the Now episodes yesterday that was focused on the future of audio and podcasting, in addition to music and sonic branding. And yeah, I mean, the numbers are there, right? The podcasting the success metrics are fantastic. We're always looking at the value of underpriced attention.
Yep.
And that's, certainly still where, podcasting is. And so Vayner is very bullish on all things audio and podcasting. And, yesterday we had Kara Swisher, who joined us on Marketing for the Now, in addition to, some Clubhouse superstars and things. And yeah, it's great to see where people are taking their careers.
Yeah.
So you can have Kara, who's such an amazing journalist. And now she, that's when she talks about herself, that, that podcaster, that is what, how that's her identity now.
Yeah.
So it's remarkable.
Yeah, it's very
But
cool.
yeah, I love, I mean, this whole experience at PodMax has been phenomenal. Just the whole idea of like giving you the training and allowing you to feel, the right amount of, fear meets enthusiastic and prepared then at the end of the
Right.
day as much as you can. But I think we all know that the more that you tell your story, the better you get at telling it, hopefully.
Yeah.
But also in learning things along the way. I mean, that's why I do these things, because I learn things from you, Todd. I learn things about myself as I'm saying them out loud. And it's, it's a beautiful experience.
Yeah. And I think, they say that fear and excitement are the same physiological experience.
Oh, is
And
that right?
yeah. And that, I think if when harnessed and you know how to use it, it becomes enthusiasm, like you just said. And I think that's very cool. And for anybody listening, Andrea, you just mentioned the sonic branding. We did have a great episode on sonic branding in season 3. So make sure you check out onairbrands.com/show for that episode. We let Eric go off, you say the word branding and he goes crazy. So I put the spotlight on him in that episode if you guys want to learn more about sonic branding stuff.
Yeah, Eric was he went to school at the School of Visual Arts, and
you're
I'm
a professor there, yeah.
Now, but yeah, we geek out on brand stuff.
Yep.
In fact, when we were talking and Josh was there, he was sort of like, should I even be here? Or, what should happen here? But yeah, yesterday Intel joined us to talk about their bong is what they call the da 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 da.
Yeah.
And they're reimagining it. So they're trying to bring it into different places. Cool. And kind of extend it. So they're by no means, changing it, but
right. Okay.
just sort of, threading it in a different way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like exciting to see. Even in, we oftentimes will encourage even our, the people who have brands and things to have their own sonic element across all different platforms and things. It's really important.
Yeah. So, we talked about the companies that are doing this, putting out a lot of volume. There's a ton of new podcasts. Check out the PodMax podcast, weekly insights and trends. They go over the numbers. I think this past week it was announced 800,000 active podcasts or something. With all this content that's coming out, what's your take on saturation? Like, people listening are like, okay, yeah, this sounds great. I want to get involved, but there's already so much content out there. Like, maybe there's no space for me. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think, look, it's incredibly important that you're looking at your strategy across all kinds of platforms. So you talked about how if you're creating something, then you're thinking about how you're cross-pollinating the communication and how you're celebrating it, across a whole ecosystem of different channels. And so that's the most important thing. And there's a real art and science behind how you can make sure that your message is getting to the people that you want it to. And that continues to change all the time, especially right now with, all the platforms are going into moving, accelerating mode. Into walled gardens and things, and the algorithms are all changing. And so, a big part of what we do is make sure that we've got the smartest people on board that are the practitioners. Our media group has grown by 67%. And that's strictly because we've got to be in the know. We have to be looking at, especially the science behind things. And then we have the, creators that are creating things, but doing it sort of in the context of these channels.
Yeah.
But it's constantly shifting. So, I think, but what I would say is that don't use that as the excuse that everyone's looking for not to do something.
Yeah.
It just means you got to do it. You have to do it at scale, and you have to do it with intention.
Yeah. And I think every business and industry is different, right? Like 800,000 out of the world is actually not that much, And so who's your audience? If you're an accounting firm in North Jersey, you only need a couple hundred subscribers on your channel for your business to feel a difference, So I think knowing that in every different industry, your audience is not everyone in the world, and being able to niche down, I think that's the importance of that. But, talking about this, the iOS change and the security stuff, the data privacy, everything that's going on, that's going to limit the ability to target people, at least to some extent. What's, your approach? I always like to suggest, well, I don't want to load the question here, but when it comes to just publishing on social versus having some kind of owned audience, how do you mix that into the system?
Yeah. So I think it's important to have both. That, you want to make sure that you're, at the end of the day, that you're building your own, friends and family community.
Mm-hmm.
And there are ways of doing that in a very targeted way. and using a combination of paid in addition to your organic.
That was
to
next
be
on
able
my
to do
list to
that.
bring up.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're realizing is that a lot of companies just ignore the whole organic side altogether. That there's this big focus on paid, which is important. But if you don't have all of your foundational elements kind of cleaned up across social and all your own channels, and they're not working hard enough for you, then you're leaving a ton of money on the table. And so we've just launched something that almost seemed crazy to all about helping people with their social organic content and sort of going back to the start.
Yeah.
And, and so part of us said, well, wait, is this really an offering? And yes, it is. And in particular, now you want to make sure that everything that you have is fine-tuned to be able to work as hard as possible, especially with all of these changes that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So, so we're seeing a huge amount of interest and growth, even in B2B audiences, in as much as, sort of B2C companies, which is something new.
Yeah. That's kind of my niche that I've been working primarily with B2B companies on content marketing for the last 10 years. So it's something that we've always been paying attention to. But when it comes to the paid versus organic, like, Facebook has obviously very low organic reach. See stats anywhere from like 0.5% to 10%, which I think is on the high side. I haven't seen that in a long time, but and the feeds coming and going when you publish something, how many people actually see it? What's your take on, like, why should we be doing organic regularly if it's not reaching people, or how do we get it to reach the right people? How do you figure that out and justify it?
Yeah, so I think there's you can do a lot in organic, just in trying to figure out what's resonating and what's not, and then be able to double down on it in terms of paid. And certainly, we've found a lot of success with LinkedIn. You mentioned, B2B audiences. Where it looks like the CPMs are super high, but you're able to target people in a way that you can't in other platforms and things like that. But it's important that that organic is something you're able to hopefully be with the community that's your people.
Yeah.
So, kind of getting that read is important, but then going out and testing, new audiences as well. We use kind of a yes and approach in that respect.
I think that's a big mindset block for businesses, is they're thinking of organic or paid, or video or audio, or written or video. It's or, but it's not or, right? It's both.
Always and. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, and there's something to be said, right? People, we don't have unlimited time and budgets and all those kind of things, but the way you get the multiplier effect is to be able to look at the combination of the things and how they all, they create the flywheel.
Yeah. Can you talk about that flywheel? I know Gary's got a couple of free resources that are great. Another thing that I send to people when in the recruiting process of, how do you put out 67 pieces of content every day? That sounds like an absurd amount, right? and like, maybe at what point in a business's maturation should they think about this is what we need to be doing, versus kind of dipping their toes in the water?
Yeah, so we stood up a new company called Sasha, which helps entrepreneurs and small to medium-sized businesses look at how they bring marketing into the fold. And many of them aren't doing any marketing when they come to us. And so it's a great place to be able to explore and experiment and to see what works and what truly accelerates a business when you've got that, that kind of fresh perspective. And so, Gary he is very prolific. I think there's like a 200 some page manual that basically says, here's what I do, go nuts. Which seems crazy, because why would you publish the thing that makes you differentiated? But there's a lot of nuances, right? And so, if you need help, let us know. If you don't, take it and go. But I think that across the board, a big belief of ours is that we are only successful when we're able to help in bringing more and more people into the fold. Because right now, what we're really fighting is inertia in most organizations, or in most people even. Yeah. And so the more that we can get people to just embrace the religion that we talked about at the beginning of this show, the whole idea that I, as a person, can become a media property or a brand or a publisher, or I, as a company, or an entertainer, or, all the above. And that's how I'm going to succeed. And so we try to just create communities and, publish things about that and get everybody, kind of in that vibe and then that rhythm and helping one another. And then we meet them wherever they are. Lots of companies are looking to build in-house capabilities. If they want to take our people and borrow them for a while, great. You want to return them, fine. If you want to, whatever it is, because we know that in this situation, we're growing so fast. As long as everybody's treating everyone nicely, we're all going to be better off.
Yeah. I think that's super important is that culture, not just within the organization, but with the clients too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was the most fascinating thing for me to see in my transition from, Omnicom and Interbrand and joining Vayner is that, clients, I would see the same client, but they were more themselves, I would say, when they would come to Vayner, just because, we hire a lot of people that aren't marketers necessarily. Right. They might come from the fashion industry or the music industry, and they were good at promoting themselves. They didn't know it was marketing.
Right.
And so we bring them in because they know how to, hack different things and tell stories and do all those things. And as a result, our clients are able to kind of, shed that corporate skin that may be requiring them to behave in a way that's not truly them. And so anyway, we enjoy that just because hopefully that allows you to be a better marketer as well, because with all those layers, and if we're all pretending all these different things, it means that you're disassociating yourself with what's actually going on out in the world.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear more about like your transition to Vayner from the old school, major holding company position where what made you want to kind of make the switch into this totally new mindset of a business approach?
Yeah. And so what I would say is that I learned a tremendous amount when I was at Interbrand and Omnicom about, how to build really powerful global brands, and really appreciated, especially the looking at the methodology around the best global brands and the fact that they were starting to embrace the measurement of culture or metrics that had to do with what's going on inside a company as well as what's going on externally. That wasn't always true about the methodology. And we started looking at breakthrough brands. That was another, study that I launched while I was there, which was exciting because we needed to learn from the nimble brands that were starting to nip at the heels very quickly of larger organizations. But I did feel as if I wanted to learn more. And so it was time for me to explore something different. I do think having your independence from, a publicly traded company does give you a different set of, kind of requirements, and allows you to have a little bit more freedom in terms of how you're investing in the business. But most importantly for me, it was what kind of values do we subscribe to? And at Vayner, it's all about having empathy and having something we call kind candor, which means that you're nice to people, but you're being super honest. And so that eliminates the fear that we were talking about before. Yeah. So if you're in a brainstorm and you're ideating, you don't want to be filtering yourself and leaving 20% or maybe 50% of your ideas because you're thinking, oh, what's somebody going to think if I share that one? Maybe that's a dumb one, No, let's go. Let's share everything. And then let's test it, because who am I to say that I have the idea? Let's let the world decide. Yeah. So if that's the religion we subscribe to, then we have to have a safe place that allows us to be free. And so, and we have to have a culture that moves super fast. And so to me, to have the combination of an organization that's growing at scale, that is starting to go global. So we're going to be opening 4 different offices around the world in the next month. Wow. Alone. We're already in London and Singapore, which are growing dramatically. But it was much smaller than, Omnicom when I started. And so it's been a real blessing to join an organization that has the kind of mission that it does, commitment to its people. I think that's the other thing. It's not about making money. We never know. Like I think we're actually, we take the money and we build, a Twitch studio outside Gary's, our CFO is always like, what are we doing? But it's most important that we're connecting with culture, and we're helping our businesses to deliver business results at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. And the speed being so important. What do you see as ways to help businesses increase their speed when they're going after it? Oh, and I wanted to come back to the ideas, holding ideas back too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I think some of those things are, one and the same, right? The whole idea of speed. And I think the thing that allows you to celebrate idea creation and to get people to move beyond historic ways of, okay, let's have all these checkpoints and get sign off before we go. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we do with clients on day one is we put them all on a text string where, like, let's say I get an idea when I'm in the shower, I'm going to just plop it in the text chat. Right. People are going to riff on it. And clients initially are all very excited because there's a lot of adrenaline, lots of ideas going back and forth, and it's it's exciting until like day 3 where they realize that, wait, this isn't going to stop. Yeah. But it's that kind of speed that allows us then to put things out in the marketplace, see what's going on, and to know that this is an ongoing thing. It's not like, okay, we got this, now we got the answer and we're just going to continue on with this one thing. No, it's just it's only then when you think you've got it, that's when you're in trouble, right? You got to go on to the next move. And so I think having that kind of vibe and getting the clients to build that muscle and be a part of the team rather than here's a brief and then we go off and we do our thing and we come back. It's like, no, we're all in this together. Yeah,
I've totally changed, and I think you guys probably do this too, but our approach, like, think about this how silly this sounds when you explain it. In the old agency model of, okay, you're business X and you're an expert in whatever your industry is. And then you hire an agency who then internally has to create content for you or come up with ideas for you. And then they go out and Google and start researching stuff when your brain is the one that has it already, And so we've totally shifted. It sounds like you guys do this too, where it becomes a collaborative relationship with the client because they're the subject matter experts, and then getting them engaged in that stuff, and then putting the spotlight and literally the spotlight and camera on them to share those ideas and make that the content that goes out. That's another.
That's right. They're on the stage, right? They are the content.
Yeah. And in today's world now, it's most of the meetings being on Zoom. It's like, we're just going to record our meetings, and when there's something good that's worth it, like, we can clip it out and that becomes the content.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think the other thing that we've done that's been interesting is actually have, I forget what you call them, but they're like externships, so that the client actually joins Vayner and they don't work on their own business.
That's awesome.
They don't work on their own business, which is the thing that blew me away. Cause I was like, legally, can we do that?
Right.
And then vice versa. So we did a swap where, one of our people went and lived, and our people couldn't believe that these people in marketing had meetings about stuff that didn't have to do with marketing and, product, supply chain, all kinds of stuff, e-commerce, that's another thing that we, our Vayner commerce business has just gone crazy. And the whole idea of how marketing and e-com and supply chain, all that kind of stuff has to come together. But I think it's, it's important to understand the perspective and how different they are, across the board, and how can we come together.
Yeah. I think that's great. And I think that's, we got 2 minutes left here, so I want to wrap up. That's a great place. But what's the best place for people to find you? Because you had amazing insights and value throughout this whole conversation. I'm sure we have people eager to learn more and hear more about what you have to say about this stuff. So where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah. So hit me up on my email, andrea.sullivan@vaynermedia.com. Also, you can take a look at everything that we offer at VaynerX.com, including marketing for the now. We've had 20 different episodes, so all kinds of interesting content. Hit me up on, all the LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all those things. But would love to help anybody that's either looking for a job, that's looking for content or ways to celebrate all the things that we just talked about here. Todd, it was really fun. But we believe that in good karma, and we want to help anybody that's out there.
I love it. Thank you so much. And for you guys listening, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please share this on social, tag Andrea on those socials she just mentioned, and us at On Air Brands. And it was great having you on. We will catch you guys on the next episode.